Our project is on the history of the North American Indigenous Games.
The North American Indigenous Games were developed for young people in all Indigenous communities, as some of the older people were concerned about what was happening in their communities.
The North American Indigenous Games were created to encourage cultural activities and find something constructive for youth to participate in.
The games are reserved for those of ages 13 to 19 who are born of North American Indigenous ancestry from various nations across Canada and the United States of America.
The first ever North American Indigenous Games was held in 1990 in Edmonton, Alberta, but the dream to hold a game for Indigenous peoples began back in the 1970s, with the Native Summer Games held in Enoch and the Western Canada Native Winter Games held on Blood Reserve in Kainai, Alberta.
Approximately 3,000 people participated in the first North American Indigenous Games spanning over 37 nations. In the most recent North American Indigenous Games, it grew to over 5,000 participants spanning to over 700 nations.
The first North American Indigenous Games had 15 sports, including traditional sports such as archery, which was a way of life for many Indigenous people. They also had canoeing, which was used as transportation for Indigenous people, and rifle shooting, which derives from hunting.
The North American Indigenous Games brings people together from various Indigenous nations to be a part of not only sport, but other cultural practices, such as smudging, which is a way of purifying or cleansing the soul, and traditional cultural performances such as storytelling, throat singing, and drum dancing.
These are the medals given out at the first North American Indigenous Games. The design on the medal is the logo for the North American Indigenous Games Council. The outer circle represents Turtle Island. The person in the center represents an Indigenous athlete, and the sash around their waist represents the Métis people. The 4 arrows represent the developing culture, and the eagle feathers on the arrows represent balance and harmony. The back of the medal shows a bear, a moon, and several animals representing Indigenous culture.
We were able to contact Brody Lawson, who played basketball in the first North American Indigenous Games at the age of 15. His U17 team played in the U19 division and they came 3rd place, winning a bronze medal.
I found my bronze medal when we played in Edmonton 1990. We came in 3rd place, and the thing is, we were put in U19, and all of us were U17. We came in.
These were the final standings for the 1990 North American Indigenous Games and the provinces and states that competed.
The North American Indigenous Games celebrates and honors the rich cultural heritage of Indigenous peoples across North America. It provides a platform for Indigenous athletes to showcase their talents in sports while also celebrating their cultural identity, traditions, and values.